Hello, my beautiful sisters in ministry, and welcome to one of our after hour conversations with another sister in ministry where we're exploring what does it look like to answer the call. You are on the right channel if you know you're a sister who's called to ministry beyond the walls of the church, and you might be searching for answers. You might be saying, God, which way do I go? And I wanted to bring women of God to the show who have done just that. They've answered the call. They've gone through some things. I know you've gone through some things, and yet they still said yes. And they're operating in a life that's full of joy, and they are going out and conquering the world, doing work for the Lord. I'm very excited to welcome to this after hours conversation Coach Dea, who I interviewed on my regular podcast, Faith on the Journey. We talked about the power of owning your mistakes. We had a wonderful conversation. And if you hadn't listen to that episode, check out the details in the show notes so you can listen to that. You want to check that out. But now we're having an after hours conversation around how did she even get into ministry? What was her journey like accepting the call? And so she's here to share her story with us today and to give some advice to benefit you. Welcome, Coach Dea. Thanks for having this conversation with me.
Thank you for inviting me back. It's been such an amazing blessing.
Yeah, Coach Dea. Well, let's talk. Let's talk about your process of answering the call. What was your journey like getting to this point? You just weren't just all of a sudden Coach Dea. You've gone through your fair share of challenges of owning your mistakes and transformation. So, share a little bit about your story.
Well, I believe that these types of places where we get to arrive with a mission often comes from the hard places, right? So I had relationship struggle. I was divorced twice, and that led me into this period of depression. I had PTSD, so I started looking for help. And in that process of looking for help, it was imparted to me that what I had was a message, right? That my struggle wasn't just the struggle, that there was something beyond the struggle. And I'm so grateful that I had two people actually say that to me. I see a ministry in the future for you. Your pain isn't what happening to you is not who you are. There is something beyond this. God has more for you. And even though at that time I couldn't grasp that, in fact, I thought, these people have eight heads. What are they talking about? I'm completely broken, depressed. How am I ever going to help somebody else with my pain? Well, it took a while. It was a process. But in that process, one of the elements that was very powerful was curiosity. Why are they saying that? And how can I do this? What if I could do this? So I decided to find answers for my own problems. And first, I was after I found a coach to work with. I read tons of books and I watched videos and I found a place of, wow, I wish I knew more. And in that process, I decided to take a course on marriage and family counseling because I said I need to know what it is that I did or didn't do, and it would be great to have that guidance. The guidance from people who are equipped to teach me. What was it that I needed to look? I was looking for answers. I actually was not even planning on being a coach. That actually happened later on. But what happened is after I completed the course and got my diploma, I said, wow, how many people could really benefit from this information, right? I had attended Kingdom School of Ministry. I had done tons of personal work throughout my whole entire life and had taken a break, obviously, when I got to that place where I wasn't in a good place in my own relationship. But then that process of seeking answers led me back to that place of strength, inner knowing. And I said, I definitely think that I can help other people with what I have learned. And so the ministry sort of began that way.
Super cool. I love how it started off with your own quest for healing and personal growth and working through things, not even thinking that you were going to be a coach. And there were people along the way in your journey who were like, "Hey, this is going to be a ministry." You said you thought that they had eight heads. For you, that just seemed like too much at the time. And I think for someone who's listening right now, they might be feeling the same way. Like, this is just way too much to even think that God can make anything of this mess, but you use your story and your pain as power and purpose. It was one of those things that kind of translated into eventually your message. But I'm sure the work in between was difficult because the work around personal growth and development and unpacking our trauma, you said you had PTSD. I know that that work did not happen overnight. That was some years involved in this transformational process, correct?
Absolutely. Um, you know, The interesting part about the process is that at the time, I was just thinking, how am I even going to get out of here? I have nothing to give. I have nothing to give God. I have nothing to ask. I was just in that place. So I'm only saying this to encourage if you're listening. You don't have to have all the answers, all the coordinates, how it's going to play out. I didn't know anything. All I knew was that I needed a different life. I wanted a different life. I had no idea how I was going to get there. And one of the reasons why I looked for guidance, and I know that many people can't sometimes even hire a coach, but there's plenty of books and videos to watch and podcasts to listen to. So try to see what's available, because it was really crucial for me to find the tools that I needed in order, because I didn't have the tools personally, right? So I said, okay, let me take a course, let me try to understand. I was seeking for answers, stumbling really literally and saying, I have nothing to give God. But in the end, I found, do your part, God will do the rest. Show up every day, God will do the rest. He will show you what you need to see, send the right people, show you the right books, the right movies. I watched movies and I was like, oh, I got a message out of this. I think that, humility again, right? It's such a big thing, being emotionally available, even when we're broken. You see, because emotionally available doesn't just mean when we have it all together. Okay. Being available to be vulnerable, being available to even be broken, to allow yourself to say, you know what, I am broken. In that acceptance of your brokenness, you have nothing. God will send it. You send the people, the books, the videos, the opportunity, the network, the group, the support group. It is really amazing what desire can do. Our inner desire to heal. And it doesn't look like you wake up and say, today I'm going to heal. No, it may look like what happened to me. I just want a different life. And when I made that statement, things started to shift.
Yeah, and when you made that statement and then you took action there, you were searching, you were actively involved in this process, and it's amazing how God orders our steps because I know that we can't figure this stuff out on our own. We're not that brilliant, but God ordered your steps, provided you with the right resources. You said yes, you took action, you connected, you yielded to this process, and I want to hear from you. How did it all come together? So you're in these coaching programs, you're in these classes, you're reading these books, you're on this quest to better your life. Where did you go from that to starting to coach and help people in developing your own ministry?
That was such an interesting thing. So I did all the courses, and I wasn't yet in the presence of what I needed to do. At some point I felt, this would be interesting to share, but I still was holding on to the pain that I was in, right? And it was like, well, do I reveal what happened to me? And there was a little bit of shame there, a little bit of struggle with revealing what had happened to me as a part of the teaching process, right? How did I learn? I learned because I was looking to solve my own issues, and wasn't ready to reveal it. I attended an event, right? A Christian event. And this young lady got on stage and revealed something that was very powerful, very intimate, very sensitive subject. And I was so empowered by seeing someone really reveal something with that type of openness. And I said, I'll bet that so many people that heard that story, her testimony, were moved. And immediately thought that she was holding a key to other people's prison doors. I said, if I could reveal what happened to me, I more it's all the more that I would be coming in with authenticity from experience, that my coaching would be so much more powerful if I could be, hey, I lived through this. I understand you from that perspective. And even though it wasn't meant for me to coach from a personal perspective, meaning sharing everything, the details that happened to me, it gave me that extra tool to have that understanding, a deeper understanding if I chose to go and help my clients. And that's exactly what happened. Once I heard that testimonial, I thought, okay, this is what I need to do. I know what I need to do. I need to open the door to people that have lived what I have lived, and I need to empower them and be the hope, be the light in the darkness for them, take a stand for them, with them, walk them through this season, because my season was so painful, was so dark. And I never saw myself on the outside of it. But once I got to the other side, I started looking back and say, am I going to reveal that? Because that doesn't match what I am now. In fact, I had my coach saying, I ran into your file on the computer looking for another file for a client. And I thought, in 3 short years, you weren't even the same person. I actually found my journal from back when, and I thought, I wrote this. This is not me. This is just not me. And so it was a beautiful process, because it was more about surrendering. When I surrendered to that the fact that my pain was meant for something greater than myself, even greater than the shame that I had, greater than the pain that I went through, greater than the depression and the PSD. I found that power within to serve God in a way that said, I will be here, stand and take a stand for whoever needs my help, and to teach what I have learned, right? So it was very powerful. And so I began coaching. I did a little bit of pro bono coaching because I wanted to help people and also learn from them. I took it as a healing process for me as well, because one thing is to take the course, the other one is to put it into practice. But I was good at talking with people, so it was kind of like a perfect situation. Little by little, I found the strength to create my coaching practice. I created a name for myself, so I go by Coaching with Deya, and I created a schedule. I started to, help people, and that just grew out of word of mouth. People telling me they had worked with me, so it took off. God took over, and like I said, we just say, "I'm here, use me," and God just did that. So that was great.
Yes, that is great, and I see the work that you're doing, Dea, and it's really helping to transform lives, and you do it from a place of joy, and you're extremely fulfilled by your work. I see it when you're out here serving others. I guess my question to you, though, is when someone's answering the call, particularly women, I do want to be upfront with them about the fact that you will have challenges, resistance. You'll even have to fight old narratives within your mind about what you should be doing, how you should be doing it. And so what were some of the challenges that you faced along the way, Dea, as you answered, you said, I'm going to build this coaching ministry, but you had resistance. Talk about the resistance and talk about how you navigated that.
Yes. So there's two levels, right? There's two elements, and one is your personal feeling about what you're doing, because self-doubt is going to come in, right? You're doing something for God, the enemy will show up, and it'd be like, all these, I can't do it, maybe I'm not capable. So I went through the process of self-doubt, but kept reminding myself, listen, you came here with nothing, and look where you are, you've gone. So looking back and see how far I had gone. I might have not been exactly what I wanted to be, but I said I did make so much progress, and so that kept me hopeful. Keep looking and seeing not what you don't have yet, but the things that you have accomplished so far. Stay realistic, straight, stay the course, okay? And don't believe the lies of the enemy. Don't believe your own, sometimes the things that we think about, they get in the way. The other part of it was task oriented, right? So it became a point when I wanted to do so much that I felt overwhelmed, and I started procrastinating. And then I found the perfect solution. And that was the commitment that I would do at least one thing every day towards my goal. So, and that looks like this. Let's say I wanted to create my coaching practice. Okay, one day I register my business. The next day I went on the website and created something. Or I put a flyer out, or I started calling people. Every day I would take a step towards that goal, right? And at the end of 30 days, at the end of the month, I had done 30 things. At the end of the year, I had done 365 things. And that was very powerful, but it didn't happen overnight. So a part of it is being realistic too, right? So there's a part of you that's going to be your emotions, right? Your self-doubt and all of that. And again, keep realistic, keep remembering, keep remembering who God is. Okay. That's what I kept saying to myself every day. Okay, Dea, you may think you can't do it, but he can. I would put it all on God, blame it on God, and say, he said I could do this. He created me perfectly in his image. Therefore, I can do this. I kept reminding. Prayer was very helpful. Prayer was powerful, because these prayers were, I don't know if I said, can I say supplications? Maybe, there was parts of me that were really asking God to use every part of me, particularly the parts of me that I didn't know, because that was the struggle. The parts that I could do, I could say, okay, I can work on this. But what about the parts that I didn't know, because I wasn't yet maybe equipped or ready, right? And I kept asking God to reveal those things. And sure enough, the challenges were there. I think the biggest challenge I would say was this procrastination thing. I kept talking myself out of it, and then I said, no, put a system in place that's realistic. You can't do 20 things in one day, but you can do one, right? And in doing one a day, even on the weekends, okay, even if that thing on that day would be, okay, let me just kind of envision today, take time to take 20 minutes and think about what the vision would be, write down some things, take some notes. That was enough. That was one step right there. At the end of 30 days, looking back at that list and say, okay, I did 30 things this week, and little by little, eventually I had a practice. So, and you're always doing more things, to staying open to adding to it, right? Because we have this vision, but there are things we don't know, and I think God will keep them pouring more. From doing the coaching, I had opportunities to start speaking. I had opportunities to interview people, kind of tied in with my podcast as well, although I didn't do anything with my podcast concerning the coaching. But even the process of the podcast around the time that I was building my coaching gave me the ability to speak, right? To be better at being in front of the camera. So it's almost like nothing is really separate, right? If you look, even looking back into my life, remembering, Deya, don't be nervous about speaking in public. I was a professional dancer and I singer all my life. You have the stage skills. Those were designed to aid you now. So think back of all the things you've done in the past, whether it's art or whether you are a good speaker, whether you like to read. All of those tools can be applied to your mission, in some way or another. You just have to be creative.
Be creative. Look at what you already have and step out. Do it afraid. And I think a lot of what you're saying speaks to mindset. Can you speak to that a little bit more in terms of the work that you had to do to fight this battle in your mind to say, keep moving? It's okay. One step at a time, shifting that perspective. Kind of what were some of the main nuggets, affirmations, things that you did to help you renew your mind as you were building your ministry?
I think language was a big part of it, right? So to shift that narrative, shift the language both internally and externally. So one is believing, right? Because through faith, we believe, and even if we haven't seen yet what the results will be, what the outcome will be, believing wholeheartedly that you're capable of doing this, right? We have the power to declare and decree victory over every area of our lives. So I constantly reminded myself of that. But language was important. So affirmation, daily affirmations. I can do this. Even if it was something as simple as that, I could do this. I got this. On the days that was a struggle, it was helpful to divide the day in segments, right? So at the top of every hour, I would take a deep breath and say, all is well. You got this. You could do this. Those things were very helpful. I think that language being a primary source for me personally. And I want to say this because I feel that it's not just about people of faith, okay? This is for everyone. Think about your brain. Think about mindset as something from the brain. And our brain, we're capable of creating brain pathways according to neuroscience, right? Based on our thoughts, behaviors, and habits, right? But what precedes that is language. Language allows you to make that statement, make that decision, make that choice out loud, right? Because it has a lot of power. It's kind of like when you pray. You can pray in silence. In silence, you can pray out loud. When you pray out loud, it just feels more right from here. I don't know, it's more powerful. When you sing songs of praise, there is power. So there is power in words and language. And I realized the language was a big thing because it's about the conversation about what are you saying to yourself about yourself, right? If you start to declare right from the get go that you can do this, even if you don't know how. I don't know how, but I'm going to do this. Okay. I said this every day. I don't know how, but I'm going to do it. Don't ask me how, but I'm going to do it. God is still on the throne. And the more I said that, the more empowered I felt, right? The other one is what we spoke, even on, if you have a chance to check out the other podcast about owning your mistakes. Emotional humility is a huge element. Why? Because it allows you to accept, okay, that you are teachable, you're vulnerable, you're imperfect. If you truly believe that and then don't let it bother you, you go with it, okay? You use those as actually tools, right? If you're vulnerable, that means you can learn and grow, right? You're not afraid of falling. And that's a big way to kind of learn your lessons. If you are teachable, you're humble. You're like, okay, what do I need to do? You bring more to the table. You can take more, learn more, get more from what you're learning. And if you are imperfect, oh, if you can accept that, you just have crossed so many, you just taken 100 steps ahead of everybody else because people get stopped by that. Use that as a superpower. I am imperfect and I'm okay with it. And it's going to be okay because God is leading me. God will show me where to go. So language was very powerful. And the third and last thing was, do you feel like a worthy recipient? Because many people don't. They don't feel deserving. And sometimes it's because they have shame or they haven't really worked through the healing process. Allow yourself to receive the blessings. Okay. I always say this, being positioned to receive is being positioned for greatness, right? Because when you are positioned to receive from the unknown, you're actually opening your heart and your soul and more doors to say, God, use me. God, transform me. And when you feel that, when you allow that process to take place, you're really preparing, positioning yourself for greatness. And I always like to say, faith is preparation. That process of believing without seeing prepares us to receive from a place of unknown. And that unknown, if you are a person of faith, is going to align with what God has in store for you. Sometimes we don't know what that is, but if we're open to receiving it, it happens. It will make it happen.
God will make it happen. Coach Dea, I'm enjoying this conversation, but we're almost out of time. So if you had any final words of encouragement for a sister who desires to start her ministry, what would that be?
That will be just start.
Just
Just
start.
start. That's it. Just start. Don't
Just
worry
do it.
about it. Do one thing every day. Just do something today. Make a phone call. Gather a little area that you're going to be working when you're doing your ministry, whether it be a table where you're going to be taking your notes. Organize yourself. Every day, do something towards that. And even if you don't start your ministry right now, let me tell you something. The minute your mind shifts, the minute your intention is at work. And that's, you already began. You already, sometimes, oh, I got to change so many things. Do you desire to change? Because the minute you desire, you're already shifting. You're already shifted into that space. Just start.
Just start. Thank you, Coach Dea. Check her out on IG at Coaching with Deya. She has a number of resources. She's doing some fun things on Instagram. I always love your little dance moves, Dea, on Instagram. I enjoy following
Well,
you. Thank you for being my sister and doing great work in ministry.
thank you for having me.
Yes. And thank you, sisters, for tuning in to our after hour conversation. We have special conversations with women like this who are doing great work in ministry, following interviews that I do on my a formal podcast that I've been doing for like, I think it's been 5 years now, called Faith on the Journey. And so you can check out my previous interview with Deya there. But we wanted to engage in this conversation to help sisters like you to hear from women who are doing great things in ministry to grow your ministry. And you can find some valuable resources, including courses, upcoming events, webinars, books on how to grow your ministry at womenintheministry.com. Again, that's womenintheministry.com. Again, thank you for tuning in, for enjoying this episode with me, enjoying this conversation. And feel free to subscribe, share with a friend, and let's get this message out to the world. I'll see you soon, my sisters. Have a blessed rest.